July 2024, 19 kilometers west of Tinzaouaten, northern Mali, Kidal region. Hard against the Algerian border, a column of armoured vehicles pushes north through the Sahara. The convoy is 20 vehicles long. It carries soldiers from the Malian armed forces and mercenaries from Wagner Group. The mission is to cut off a Tuareg rebel supply corridor. The vehicles at the head of the column are 4x4s, 12 tons each, V-shaped hulls, welded steel bodies, machine gun turrets on the roof. They are Chinese. They are new. They arrived in Mali just 16 months ago. At 14:50 hours on July 25, the first vehicle stops moving. It is not a mechanical fault. It is an ambush. Within 4 days, the column will be destroyed. The Malian government will go silent. Wagner Group will lose more men in a single engagement than it has ever admitted losing anywhere in Africa. And at least 3 of those Chinese armoured vehicles will appear in rebel propaganda footage, captured, intact, and flying a Tuareg flag. The vehicle is the Norinco VP11. It was designed to sell cheaply to armies that could not afford Western protection. It was supposed to be the future of Chinese arms dominance in Africa, and it became instead the most visible symbol of everything that is going wrong in the Sahel. This is what happened, and this is why it matters. To understand the VP11, you need to understand the problem China's defense industry faced in the early 2010s. By 2012, China North Industries Corporation, known as Norinco, had spent a decade building a credible domestic land forces program. It had tanks, it had infantry fighting vehicles, it had artillery, but it had almost no foothold in the global export market for protected patrol vehicles. That market, built by the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, was dominated by American, South African and Turkish manufacturers. The United States had flooded the world with Max Pro and Cougar platforms. South Africa's Paramount Group and Denel were selling battle-proven designs. Turkey's BMC was pushing the Kirpi into every conflict zone it could reach. Norinco needed a way in. It needed a vehicle that was cheap, simple, and fast to produce. A vehicle that cash-poor governments could actually buy. A vehicle that required no American export licenses, no European end-use monitoring, no human rights conditions attached to the sale. In 2010, Norinco found its answer in South Africa. A small company called EWI2, a specialist armour firm, had been developing a lightweight mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle built on a commercial truck chassis. The concept was solid. A V-hull welded to a simplified monocoque body, heavy enough to deflect a blast but light enough to retain road speed. EWI2 had the engineering knowledge. Norinco had the manufacturing capacity and the export network. They signed a cooperation agreement, and by June 2012 the result was on the floor at the China International Exhibition on Police Technologies in Beijing. They called it the 8M. It weighed 8 tons. It used a 5.9-litre Cummins diesel engine built through the Dongfeng Cummins joint venture in China. It could stop bullets up to 12.7mm at close range. It could survive an 8-kilogram TNT blast under the hull, and a 10-kilogram blast under any wheel. That was not battlefield-proven performance, but it was a credible specification, and it was priced at roughly a quarter of what a Max Pro would cost. By November 2014, Norinco had iterated the design. Heavier body, better armour geometry, revised window layout with circular ballistic gun ports, upgraded roof capable of carrying a remote weapon station. At Airshow China in Zhuhai that month, the new vehicle rolled onto the international stage under a new name, the VP11. The specification on the show floor read as follows: combat weight 12 tons when fully loaded, length 5,300mm, width 2,500mm, engine output 220 kilowatts from a turbocharged Dongfeng Cummins diesel, top road speed 120 km per hour, operational range 800 km, ground clearance 350mm, crew of 8, 1 driver and 7 passengers, run flat bullet-resistant tyres, mine-resistant seats fitted with 4-point harnesses, operating envelope from -25 degrees Celsius to +50 degrees Celsius. That final figure mattered, +50 degrees. The Sahel in July regularly exceeds 45. Baseline ballistic protection was rated to NATO Standardization Agreement 4569 Level 1, meaning resistance to 7.62mm ball ammunition at close range. An applique armour package could upgrade it to Level 2. It was not Level 3. It was not the kind of protection that American and British soldiers demanded in Iraq and Afghanistan, but it was not marketed for Iraq and Afghanistan. It was marketed for West Africa, for the Sahel, for governments with limited budgets and deteriorating security situations, for governments that had recently lost their Western partners. The armament options reinforced that positioning. Standard fit was the Norinco UW-1 remote weapon station, configurable for 7.62mm or 12.7mm machine guns. Some variants carried an open-topped manned turret with a QJC-88 12.7mm heavy machine gun. Smoke grenade dischargers were fitted as standard. On paper, the Max Pro is a more capable vehicle. It weighs 17 tons. It starts at NATO Standardization Agreement Level 2 protection, with a blast-mitigating hull designed and tested in the worst IED environment in military history. The Turkish Kirpi weighs 16 tons and carries Level 3 armour as standard. The South African RG-31 Nyala has 20 years of coalition combat experience across Iraq, Afghanistan, and Kosovo. The VP11 offered none of that pedigree. What it offered was price, speed, and a seller that asked no questions. Now, before we get into where the VP11 was deployed and what happened to it in the Sahel, if you are finding this breakdown of Chinese defense exports and modern African conflict useful, hit subscribe. It takes 1 second, it costs nothing, and it helps this channel grow. In December 2021, the Malian military junta under Colonel Assimi Goïta signed a security agreement with Russia. Wagner Group mercenaries arrived in Bamako the following month. The bill was reported at roughly $10 million per month, paid in gold concessions and cash. French Barkhane forces, which had been fighting the Sahel insurgency since 2013, were expelled. The final French troops left Mali in August 2022. United Nations peacekeepers from MINUSMA followed in December 2023. Mali was now fighting a two-front war against JNIM, the al-Qaeda-aligned coalition responsible for the majority of violent incidents across the Sahel, and against the Tuareg CSP coalition in the north, which had withdrawn from the 2015 peace process and was pushing for autonomy or independence in Azawad, the vast desert territory stretching to the Algerian border. Mali needed vehicles. Russia, stretched by Ukraine, could not supply new platforms at scale. China could. In March 2023, the first shipment arrived, around 100 VP11 MRAPs and Lynx CS/VP11. Light all-terrain vehicles were delivered to the Malian armed forces, commissioned by President Goïta himself at a ceremony at Kati on April 27, 2023. A second batch arrived through the port of Conakry in June 2023. The vehicles were fitted with 12.7mm turrets and immediately began operating alongside Wagner mercenaries in the north. It was the first time Chinese armoured vehicles had been deployed in a Sahel counterinsurgency on this scale, and for 16 months they operated without a major documented loss. That ended at Tinszawatan. On July 20, 2024, a roughly 20-vehicle column left the government-held town of Bokassa and began pushing north through the Kidal region. It was a combined force, Malian soldiers and Wagner Group's 13th Storm Brigade, commanded by Sergei Shevchenko, known by his call sign, Pond. The mission was to reach Tinzaouaten, cut the rebel supply corridor from Algeria, and demonstrate Malian government control of the far north. An improvised explosive device in the Tamasahat Valley disabled one armoured personnel carrier on the approach. The column pressed on. On July 23, the column reached Inafarak and took it. They were 19 kilometres from Tinzaouaten. On July 25, at 14:50 hours Greenwich Mean Time, the CSP-DPA rebels sprang the ambush. Tuareg fighters under Al-Gabas Agintala and Sedain Aghita had taken the high ground. The column was on a road in low ground with no air cover and no reconnaissance. The opening salvos killed approximately 10 Malian soldiers and 5 Wagner mercenaries in the first minutes. The survivors dismounted into cover that did not exist. A sandstorm moved across the engagement area. It halted air assets. It limited visibility. It gave the rebels time to bring in reinforcements. By Wagner's own later accounting, CSP strength exceeded 1,000 fighters. On July 27, JNIM units under Abderrahman Azaza ambushed the surviving column as it attempted to withdraw toward Tingamira. A Mi-24 helicopter attempting to evacuate the wounded crashed near Kidal. The convoy was gone. Open-source intelligence analysts at Armada Rota published a documented vehicle tally on July 28. 21 Malian and Wagner vehicles confirmed lost, 8 destroyed, 12 captured, 1 abandoned. Among those captured, 4 Norinco CS/VP 11 MRAPs, 1 had been destroyed, 3 were intact and in Tuareg hands. They appeared in footage on Tuareg telegram channels with rebel fighters standing on the roofs. The footage also recovered from the bodies of dead Wagner mercenaries included personal GOPRO recordings. Among the dead was Nikita Fedyanin, the administrator of Wagner's own Grey Zone telegram channel, one of the most followed Russian military social media accounts in the world. His footage showed the convoy moving through the landscape moments before the ambush. His channel had promoted the same vehicles as symbols of Wagner's unstoppable progress through Africa. He died inside one. The New York Times later geolocated and confirmed at least 46 Russian dead and 24 Malian soldiers killed, plus 9 prisoners. CSP claimed 84 Wagner mercenaries killed. Wagner's own internal communications acknowledged 3 men still fighting from the entire brigade. It was the most catastrophic defeat Wagner Group had suffered anywhere on the African continent. The Italian Institute for International Political Studies noted bluntly that the Wagner mercenaries had been riding Chinese-made armoured vehicles. That sentence circulated in every major defence publication within 72 hours. It was not what Norinco's marketing department had envisioned. The VP11's failures at Tinzaouaten were not mechanical. No vehicle manufacturer would have promised that a Level 1 MRAP could survive anti-tank weapons, improvised explosives, drone strikes, and small arms fire from elevated positions across a 4-day engagement. The Max Pro and the Kirpi would have burned on the same road. The operational failure was doctrinal. A road-bound column without air cover, without reconnaissance assets, without infantry screening the flanks, moving into terrain where the rebels had weeks to prepare. No armour survives that, but the images did damage that no technical specification could undo. A Turkish Kirpi captured in Africa would have been a Turkish problem. A Max Pro captured would have been an American story. A Norinco VP11 captured in Mali, flying a Tuareg flag, became China's problem, because China had told the world that it was replacing the Western security architecture in the Sahel, and those 3 vehicles said, in the clearest possible terms, how that was going. Rival manufacturers drew their own conclusions. Burkina Faso, despite Tinszawatan, accepted a batch of 40 VP11s from China in June 2024, delivered alongside 50 CS/VP11 MRAPs. The CS/VP11 is the VP11's newer and heavier sibling, rated to Level 3B with a stronger engine and a larger protected cell. It is the vehicle Norinco now pushes to new African customers. The VP11 is the entry-level offer. The CS/VP11 is the serious package. The gap between them is approximately the gap between something that defends against rifle fire and something that defends against heavy machine guns. The Turkish Kirpi, by comparison, starts at Level 2 as standard and is combat tested in Syria. The South African RG-31 Nyala has a lighter combat weight, but over 2 decades of proven mine resistance in the worst environments ever encountered by coalition forces. On paper, neither is as cheap as the Chinese offer. Neither comes with the financing, the training packages, or the political convenience. That combination, low price, no conditions, and guaranteed supply chain, is why by 2024, China had become sub-Saharan Africa's largest arms supplier, accounting for 19% of the region's weapons imports, ahead of Russia at 17%. The VP11 had reached Mali, Burkina Faso, the Ivory Coast, Gabon, and Tajikistan. Chinese peacekeepers had operated modified VP11s in the United Nations mission in Mali as early as January 2018. In Mali, in April 2026, the Tuareg Azawad Liberation Front and JNIM advanced further and captured Kidal itself. Africa Corps Forces, the rebranded successor to Wagner Group under direct Russian Defense Ministry command, withdrew under a negotiated corridor. Additional VP11 losses, alongside a BTR-82A and a captured Russian Tornado U, were documented in those engagements. July 2024, 19 kilometers west of Tinzaouaten. The convoy is gone. The vehicles sit in the sand under a rebel flag. The VP11 had no night vision. Its baseline armour would not stop a heavy machine gun round without the appliqué package fitted. It had no battle-tested service history before the Sahel. Its electronic countermeasures were limited. The vehicle that arrived in Mali in 2023 had been designed for a security environment that northern Mali had not resembled since 2012, and yet it sold. It sold to Mali, to Burkina Faso, to the Ivory Coast, to Gabon. It sold because the only alternative was nothing. The VP11 was never supposed to be the best protected vehicle in Africa. It was supposed to be the one that showed up when the French left and the Americans said no. It was supposed to be proof that Chinese industry could arm a continent on its own terms. At Tinzaouaten, it proved something else. It proved that a cheap vehicle in a catastrophic ambush is still a catastrophic ambush. It proved that armour is not a substitute for doctrine. And it proved that the images of Chinese hardware in rebel hands travel faster than any press release Norinco will ever write. That is not a quality problem. That is not an engineering failure. That is the cost of selling weapons to a war you did not plan for.